Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Power of the Breath and Epic Wellness podcast, your source for information about the training secrets and insights from freediving, not only to help you breathe better, perform better, and reduce stress and anxiety, but also so you can live the most healthy and epic life possible. I am your host, Renee Blunden. I'm a competitive freediver and a freediver instructor trainer living in Dahab, Egypt. And as always, I will offer information about powerful breathing techniques, proven meditation techniques, and exercises for vibrant health and well-being. This podcast represents the efforts of my own personal research and things I've learned from competitive freediving, and also from trying to improve my own health, fitness, and lifestyle, as well as the combined efforts of a public open source information network, which I invite you to join on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/power of the breath. All are welcome. So there was a lot there in the last episode, and so just to take a minute to recap, basically, you have oxygen, which comes through our nose or our mouth, and then it goes into the lungs, which have multiple lobes. And because of gravity, the lower lobes of the lungs have more blood running through them. So when you breathe more deeply, the oxygen is able to move into the blood through the alveoli much better and much faster. So then, whenever you take a breath, we are taking these gases from the exterior environment and moving them into our body. It's almost like our lungs are eating the air in a way. So the oxygen moves from the lungs into the blood and then goes into your circulation. And so all the different parts of the lungs affect the oxygen transfer differently and affects the CO2 exchange differently, because the oxygen is going in and at the same time the carbon dioxide is going out. And so today we've basically put ourselves into like a human zoo. It's an environment that's like a really bad human zoo. And it's an environment that people are over busy, are overburdened, and so people are over breathing because we're stressed all the time. And so this has massively bad implications for our physiology and our health. Overbreathing and mouth breathing creates more sympathetic activity in the body, whereas nose breathing, we are much more parasympathetic. Now, if you are breathing fast through your nose like this, yes, you're hyperventilating, but you're carrying more parasympathetic tones than if you were breathing fast through the mouth. And you can just try it out. You can find out just by doing it. Breathe through your nose really fast, and then breathe through your mouth really fast. You'll notice a difference. The mouth breathing, you'll feel a bit more high and a bit more alert, which are characteristics of sympathetic activity. Now, I know a lot of people say that you should never have to control your breathing. I've heard things like, oh, if you're healthy, your breathing is just a byproduct of what you're doing. And that's true if we were in the natural environment. Then we wouldn't need to worry or think about our breathing at all. There's actually a lot of evidence if you look into our history and look into indigenous cultures and how they differ from civilized culture. They did not open their mouths when they hunted or when they gathered. George Catlin, who was a guy who traveled the American West in the 1830s, he painted portraits of the Native Americans, and he wrote about the life of the Plains Indians, and he wrote the book, Shut Your Mouth and Save Your Life. I love that title. So not only did he observe the consistent habit among Native American people of nose breathing over mouth breathing, but he also observed that they had perfectly straight teeth, just as a side note there. And he repeatedly heard that they did nose breathing because they believed mouth breathing made an individual weak and caused disease, while nose breathing made the body strong and prevented disease. Even the mothers, they would repeatedly close the mouth of their infants while they were sleeping and in between feeding, in between breastfeeding, to instill the nose breathing habit. And because they were in fear of getting the, quote, black mouth, which is one of the terms that they used that civilized man had, George Catlin stated in his book, quote, there is no person in society but who will find improvement in health and enjoyment from keeping his or her mouth shut. And that's just an insight from the 1830s there. Also, animals. Generally, when animals are exerting themselves, they're not mouth breathing. They're always nose breathing. Think of a horse running. A horse will die at speed if he mouth breathes. Their nose is designed so that when they're running, because their diaphragm works like a big piston, so when they land, it drives the air out, and when they gallop, it draws the air in. And it's a perfect shot from the nose to the base of the lungs. If they open the mouth, it ruins that, and they can hyperventilate so quick that they can die instantly. So besides horses, monkeys, apes, and hippos who sweat, and so they don't typically ever breathe through their mouth, even the animals that don't sweat don't breathe through their mouth unless they're cooling themselves down. So they breathe through their noses while they're exerting themselves, and then afterward, they only breathe through their mouths in order to cool down, kind of like dogs do. If you notice, when a dog is running, it'll close its mouth, and then it will mouth breathe and pant afterward in order to cool themselves down. So that's why you'll never see a cheetah or a lion open its mouth when it's on a hunt, unless it actually goes to bite. But always those mouths don't open until the sprint is over. And yet, look at us. This is the cage, the human zoo that we've been living in. Even if you look at elite athletes, like the guy who ran a marathon in under 2 hours, don't remember how to pronounce his name, Eliud Kipchoge. Anyway, he actually nose breathes for the majority of the run. You can check out the footage and see there's literally images of him with salt and snot running down his face. Now, there's definitely a time and a place to mouth breathe inside performance. But if you can't do some easy nose breathing while doing some light exercise or even no exercise, you are over breathing. And over breathing, whether you're a world-class athlete or grandma, is a problem metabolically. If we overbreathe, even if it's at high exertion, we are overbreathing, and we are not getting as much oxygen into the body, and we're not utilizing the oxygen and carbon dioxide system as best as we can. And the thing is, we are so unaware. Even athletes, many of them, before they even do anything, their mouth is open and their jaw is nearly on the floor. Is this necessary? They're going to be more sympathetic. And even if you want to feel that alertness before your event, it's like, I don't know, if you're properly warmed up, is that really necessary? Just throwing that out there. So freediving is my sport, freedivers are usually always mouth breathing the minutes before a dive. And it's usually because we have a mask or the nose clip on, so that's preventing us from breathing through the nose, and so we just breathe through the mouth instead. But I've seen videos of freedivers, like for example, Matt Molina, who sometimes doesn't use a nose clip or a mask before his dive, so he's got nothing blocking the nose. So he actually has the option to breathe through the nose before a dive. But he still chooses to breathe through the mouth in the minutes before the dive, at least in the videos that I saw. Now, I'm sure he's got very good reasons for this, but I'd be curious, if a freediver did more nose breathing right before a dive versus mouth breathing, would they feel more relaxed and less anxious on their dive? So this is something that I've been experimenting with lately. So anyway, the takeaway is this: breathe through your nose as often as you can. And yes, even when you're working out, of course, it'll be harder, especially at first. It'll take a lot more intention and awareness, but you'll see that you can actually do the majority of your workouts while nose breathing. It'll just feel a little bit different, but you can use that as an opportunity to notice how you feel. Notice how you feel during the exercise, notice the difference there, and also the difference afterwards. Now, sometimes your central nervous system demand may be higher. For example, it can go way up, like when you're making a really hard kick or a punch. You might be better off with a ha as you exhale through the mouth. But if you do that for every single hit, and if you do that day after day, it's a problem because you're drawing on a lot of energy. So if instead you breathe through your nose while exercising or training, you experience more parasympathetic tones and the ability to see the bigger picture. So the more sympathetic that you get, basically the less broadly you can see. You get like a bit of a tunnel vision effect. Like if you ever texted on your phone while driving, your focus is so narrowed in on that small screen so you can't see the area behind the windshield. It's also why nobody ever freaks out while looking at a sunset, because it's not just that it's beautiful, it's that your visual system takes up 40% of your brain. So in that moment, we're literally opening up, and then slow down and total downshift. Well, breathing is actually the easiest thing to grab a hold of and to calm yourself down. Even if you can just breathe through your nose and slow down your exhale a bit more from a deep breath and continue to do that, you're literally able to drop yourself into parasympathetic activity, at least more tones of it. And so when you do that, you become much more calmer and you notice the details of what's going on around you. And so you can take in more information, which is super valuable for anyone and any athlete. Especially imagine if you have an opponent. You can, for example, notice their breathing change and know that now you got them, because now they're not going to be able to make as good decisions if you see them start breathing through their mouth. And so that's the whole point of training, to make better decisions when you're under stress and with high levels of CO2 in the body. That's really the foundation of all training, the ability to make a better decision. And the thing is, if anything skips over that, you're going to find problems quickly. But if you're actually learning to make better decisions at higher levels of stress, you're actually improving everything. But we lose sight of that because we're a society that's constantly driven towards performance markers. I've got to dive deeper. I've got to lift heavier, run faster, perform better, go, go, go. Do this, improve that. For what really? Why can't that be the byproduct of what you're really doing? The thing about breathing through your nose before, during, and even after your performance, it helps get you to feel your physiology and become more attuned to what you're doing. For example, I remember starting off while I was jogging, trying to nasal breathe. I remember thinking oh wow, I can only get up to 140 heart rate before I feel like I'm absolutely dying, and thinking, oh my God, I need to mouth breathe. Well, after doing it for a couple of months, that's now around 165 heart rate, which is literally over 90% of my max heart rate, and I can nasal breathe quite comfortably, and if I mouth breathe, I cannot put out any more work. And so I end up stressing myself too much, and then I have to stop. Now, I could get a little higher heart rate and go faster by mouth breathing and deal with that, but it would be short-lived because I'd feel the changes that would start to happen. Because by doing this over time, you become so attuned to your physiology, to the feeling in your body, and understanding the difference in all of these things. So I'm going to leave it there for now. I hope that was helpful and interesting for everyone listening. If this is your first time listening, please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. And also feel free to check out the podcast on the website with all the show notes, the blog, and the other resources. You can find it at reneeblunden.com/podcast. And don't forget to join the Facebook group if you haven't already. You can find it at facebook.com/groups/power of the breath. You can post your feedback and questions about this episode there. Also, I'm doing live weekly breathing and meditation sessions on there for free. So definitely join the group so you can join the live training sessions. So thank you all for listening. I hope you all have a great day.